Good evening. After a tumultuous period of political turmoil in France, President Emmanuel Macron has named François Bayrou as the next Prime Minister of the country. Well, Bayrou, a 73-year-old centrist ally, replaces Michel Barnier after the government was ousted by a parliamentary vote last week. Barnier's administration had tried to pass a trimmed-down social security budget to address France's large deficit, which led to the collapse of his government. Bayrou, a long-standing figure in French politics and a key partner in Macron's centrist alliance, is expected to form his government in the coming days. Well, the French president will be hoping that his new candidate will be capable of staying in office longer than his predecessor, Michel Barnier, who, as we said, lasted just 3 months as Prime Minister.
Well, the French president has named his new prime minister, and it is going to be François Bayrou, the centrist leader chosen to replace the outgoing premier Michel Barnier. Now, the two men had discussions on Friday morning that lasted nearly 2 hours in the Élysée Palace, trying to thrash out the details of what a Bayrou premiership might look like. And Emmanuel Macron missed his deadline to announce a prime minister on Thursday night, also missed his next deadline to announce a prime minister on Friday morning. The eventual communique being released by the Élysée Palace just before 1 p.m. Local time here in France, and it did say that François Bayrou is going to be the next Prime Minister, and he has been charged with forming the new government. Now, it is going to be hard for Mr. Bayrou to do so, because we know all of the trouble that Michel Barnier faced towards the end of his time in office when he was ousted in that dramatic no-confidence vote. And already on Friday, we've had a reaction from the far-left party, who have said that they will be submitting and voting in favour of a motion of no confidence to oust Mr. Bayrou at the first possible opportunity. Only a left-wing and ideally a far-left Prime Minister would satisfy that party. In terms of the far-right, they've also reacted. They have said that they wouldn't immediately be voting to oust Mr. Bayrou. They want to give him some time to understand his plans in more detail and see who he chooses to be in his next government. Can he appoint figures from the left, the centre and the right to answer Emmanuel Macron's ambition that the next government would be representative of all political forces? As he was leaving, Michel Barnier thanked his team and said that we had begun to write a beautiful page with our work together. And he did also thank the ministers that he's been working with. We'll see in the coming days if Mr. Bayrou says that to some of those outgoing ministers, could you remain in place, or if he chooses to replace them with his own choices. In terms of the man himself, there's no change from Michel Barnier in terms of the age. Both men the same. They're both 73. Mr. Bayrou comes from the deep south of France, from the Pyrenees Mountains, and the son of a farmer. And we're going to see if he is able to stay in office longer than Michel Barnier, who is officially the shortest serving French Prime Minister in modern history. Ross Cullen, AnewZ, Paris.
Well, as 2024 wraps up, France finds itself at a political and economic crossroads. After Michel Barnier's government collapsed following the no-confidence vote, political divisions deepened.
France is facing a political crisis that could have far-reaching consequences for the Eurozone. Marine Le Pen's far-right party has gained traction, posing a serious challenge to President Emmanuel Macron's government. The rise of populism and increasing discontent with Macron's economic reforms have shaken France's political stability, with implications for the European Union. Le Pen's national rally is polling at around 25–30%, while Macron's Renaissance party struggles to maintain its support base. Disapproval of Macron's pension reforms has further fueled political tensions, with protests erupting across France. France approaches a political and economic crossroads as 2024 ends, following the collapse of Michel Barnier's government after a no-confidence vote, appointed in September to address the deficit crisis. Barnier's tenure was marred by backlash to austerity measures, including tax hikes and spending cuts. His efforts to reduce the 3.2 trillion euros debt and comply with European Union fiscal rules failed amid fierce opposition from Marine Le Pen's national rally and far-left factions. Macron appointed Barnier to stabilize the situation, but his budget bypassed parliamentary debate, fueling discontent. France's deficit rose to 5.5% of GDP in 2023 due to massive pandemic-related spending, prompting the European Commission to place it under scrutiny. The European Union requires a deficit under 3% for financial stability. But the 2024 deficit projected at 6.1%, Barnier proposed a budget of 40 billion euros in cuts and 20 billion euros in tax hikes to reduce the deficit of 5% by 2025. While this plan satisfies Brussels, it remains unpopular within France. Now, France faces rising bankruptcies, inflation, and a bleak fiscal outlook, with Moody's warning of broader risks to the Eurozone.
Well, moving now to Central Asia, and the National Bank of Kazakhstan has revised its forecast for 2025 oil prices, lowering the projected cost from $82.5 to $70 per barrel. Well, despite this adjustment and wider concerns from economists about the falling value of the national currency, the tenge, the Astana-based bank remains more optimistic than Bank of America, which recently reduced its oil price forecast for next year to $65 per barrel. Well, the forecast by the National Bank of Kazakhstan was part of its updated monetary policy report, which blamed oil price drops on lower than anticipated demand from China and OECD countries, coupled with slower global economic growth. Kazakhstan is a country where declining oil prices can present significant fiscal challenges. According to the Ministry of Finance, this year the country has collected 2.3 trillion tenge in oil revenue, which is approximately 4.4 billion US dollars. Now, earlier I discussed this issue and wider aspects of Kazakhstan's economy with two of the country's leading economic experts.
Global demand for oil is decreasing due to the decreasing demand from China, OPEC countries. Also, in the beginning of November this year, we saw that OPEC decided to shorten its oil production, and Kazakhstan Ministry of Energy is saying that as a result of this year, the oil production of Kazakhstan will be around 88 million to 90 million tons of oil. Some international forecasts saying that maybe the oil demand will decrease also due to the rise of electric vehicles, electromobiles. So, and how Kazakhstan is trying to face the situation, as we can see, starting from the beginning of 2010s, Kazakhstan started its own industrial programs of industrial diversification. And the good point is that according to the official Kazakhstani data, the volume of manufactural industrial production in Kazakhstan after 2023 increased to around 47%, and the volume of oil and gas industry was equal around 46%. And after 10 months of 2024, we also see that this is the trend. After the 10 months of 2024, we can see that the volume of manufacturing industry increased to 48%, while oil and gas is 46%. Another very important industry direction of Kazakhstan diversification is increasing its transport and logistics capacities. So Kazakhstan is saying that we wanted to become one of the main important transport logistics hubs on the Eurasian continent. And this is one of the points of deepening and increasing Kazakhstani-Azerbaijani cooperation through the Middle Corridor.
Bank of America, as we know, decreased to $65 per barrel, and our national bank decreased as well to 70%. But still, it's more optimistic price. However, our national bank is not the only the institution who predicts for this price. Morgan Stanley also reported that the next average price for the next year would be 70%. So, in my opinion, the average oil price for coming 12 months would be around 60, if not more, or around 70, if not more. Then I think it's the more realistic prediction.
Well, that is all we have time for on NewsHour this evening. Thank you very much for watching. Please do stay tuned on AnewZ for plenty more news and analysis. And from all of us here on the NewsHour team, we wish you a very pleasant evening ahead.